FCS fans nation, welcome to another episode of 1AA Parlays. I'm your host, Colby Peterson. We're on the FCS Fans Nation Network, or just the Fans Nation Network, because it's more than FCS these days. And joining me this week, once again, Montana Parlay. Parlay, you had, I think, about as rough a week as I did last week, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I gave out picks that went 1-3. Did a little better overall record on my own. Actually, one more than I lost. Problem was the bankroll management. I loaded up on Davis minus 23.5. They gave up a late touchdown. They were driving and down the ball inside the 10. So that was, I gave up all my profits and then some on that, and came into the Bozeman yesterday cash rich. Went to the tables. Poker tables, came out cash poor. So overall, I'm looking to right the ship this week, and we're going to get it done.
Yeah, like you said, Davis ended up going 31-13 over Cal Poly, but like you said, that late touchdown did him in. That's 6 points in the fourth. Well, man, let's talk a little bit about this week. We, of course, are going to We're going to recap our picks from last week, which it's going to be rough, folks. We did not have a good week. I mean, nobody had a good week last week, I would say. There was a lot of chaos all across the FCS. If you've listened to any podcasts this week, you definitely heard that there was chaos all across. A lot of ranked teams ended up losing. And so that also, obviously, if you're betting, that hurts you. So we'll talk about how we did last week, and then we'll move into this week's picks, because there's some interesting stuff out there. We're well into conference play now. And there are some matchups out there that I think there's some really good opportunities in. So before we get into all of that, we want to encourage everybody to subscribe on YouTube to the FCS Fans, the Fans Nation Network. Make sure to follow them on Facebook, Twitter. Great places to get involved. The Facebook group is a great place to chat with fellow FCS fans. There's always a game day thread for whatever game you are following. And that's a great place to chat with other people that are following that game, plus more. So the FCS Fans Nation Facebook group, and of course, follow them on Twitter. Great places. Really appreciate those guys for taking some time and letting us do this show here. So, Parlay, let's talk a little bit about it, man. Last week, we ended up going, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those 9 picks that we put out there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 did not hit. We were 3 of 9, 3 and 6 last week. Rough.
You didn't hit your over on the Portland State, Montana State. That was under
66.
I know that. Yeah, it was under that. I know that because the Bobcats had a chance to push it over, and they downed it late in the game inside the 15. So
ruining our life. So that's even worse. 2 and 7, folks, last week. Just absolutely brutal. Like you said, Parlay. Yep, it was 60. So not good enough. Not good enough with that number. I think what happened was I hit in the app, I bet, and the number that we had talked about on the show was a little higher than that. So that's probably what I was thinking when I put the rundown together. But let's go through some of your picks, Parlay. Last week, let's start with on a good note. UM continues to perform continues to underachieve, I guess. Their under was 56.5, and it remains so. That's been a very consistent bet this season.
It has, and I mean, coming out of the half, you were thinking you're almost counting your money. It was 7-7 with a 56.5. You're thinking, all right, what am I going to bet these profits on? And then they rolled off 28 points between them and Idaho State in the third quarter. Grizz just started laying it on, so it was a lot closer than the final score of the halftime score would show. But yeah, that's 4-0, or was it 5-0 against the unders? And we're going to talk about tonight's game a little bit on that, I guarantee you, because there's a discrepancy between what it looks like the national books are going to post their number at and what Sportsbet Montana is posting their number at. So there could be a chance for some arbitrage and maybe some value there.
So if you're in Montana, maybe some opportunity for you to take advantage. Parlay's always got his eyes on those Montana bets. So if you're in that area and you have an opportunity to go to some of those kiosks, keep a close ear to what he has to say in just a bit. But now let's get into some of the bad, man. Davis, minus 24. Not even close. Like, what a bummer, man.
Well, it was close. I mean, they were, here's what happened is they got into 4th and short 3 different times inside Cal Poly territory. I'm always a go for it on 4th and short. Don't kick the field goal. In this instance, 2 out of 3 field goals would have covered. I had 23 and a half.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But honestly, if they hit one of those 4th down conversions, they really, against a team like Cal Poly, they should hit at least 2 out of 3 4th and shorts. They're going to score a touchdown. They're going to get points on the board. That was rough, let alone giving up a good drive to Cal Poly late in the 4th, then moving the ball, and you're watching that clock thinking, how aggressive are they going to be? I really wish Davis would have hung another touchdown on them. But
yeah, then you would have covered.
Perfect reason to manage your bankroll. Like, if you like it, bet 2 or 3 units. Don't be putting down 4, 5, or 6 units chasing the night. You have a few beers with the noon game, the 1 o'clock, the 2 o'clock game. You're winning some bets. You're always tempted. It's like blackjack. You're running hot with your $15 to $20 bets. So what do? You bump it up, and what happens? The dealer hits a 5-card 21. You'd think we'd learn these lessons by now, but we don't. At least I don't. Maybe my viewers here are a little smarter than I am.
Those West Coast games can be tough. And like you said, at halftime, it looked good for Davis. They were up 24-7. They had scored easily in the first half, and it looked like they were just going to continue that trend. Pauly did not really do very much in the second half either. They had, like you said, late in the 4th quarter. But it looked like at halftime, Davis was easily going to cover. This was a slam dunk. And
they're up 24-0. It PTSD back to the Washington State, my other big bet of the year, Washington State, Northern Colorado. That line was high, 40-something.
40s, yeah.
And Washington State was up 47-0 and didn't cover. So, yeah, it's tough. Those big spreads are dangerous. Don't fall in love with them. I've been told that time and time again, but I can't help myself.
Yeah, the FBS stuff is always kind of hard to gauge because they're usually early in the season. You're not quite sure what you have on both sides of the ball. So you're kind of going a little bit off of what you saw the previous year plus what you know maybe about the FCS squad. Whereas this one, man, just a late game. Davis just doesn't seem to get it done. But let's move on, man. Let's talk about the next one. Sac State, minus 20.5. This one was also disappointing. Much closer than I think anybody anticipated. 31-30 over Northern Arizona in California.
That was interesting to me. I just thought Sac, watching them in Idaho, my takeaway was Sac was the better team. Idaho had a lot more talent, especially quarterback receiver. And between that and at home, they pulled it out. So I don't know if that was a letdown game with Sac or if they're not as good as we thought they were. Everyone's probably going to chime in and say Sac State is frauds. Or if NAU is actually legit. I think Grizz fans would like to think that. But to see NAU, after a huge win at home, go on the road and nearly beat Sac, that was pretty impressive. I don't care how good or bad Sac is this year.
We'll talk a little bit about that because Northern Arizona on the road playing at a struggling Weber State today. And that line looks awful tasty. We'll bring it up in just a bit. But I think the thing for NAU that's kind of making folks not quite sure what to make of them is that massive loss to Utah Tech. Just getting absolutely blown out is like, okay, now all of a sudden playing in close games, beating Montana, playing a close game to Sac on the road, which, I mean, I guess the caveat there is Sac has always been a better team on the road, so they're playing this game in Sacramento. That's if you're going to get Sac, that's usually how you're going to get them. So Weird one, but NAU, don't know what to make of them. I think we'll learn a lot today against Weber State when they play. Final one, man. Chambers over at 165 rushing. I think it wasn't quite there. It was like it was passing. Okay. Yeah, that also wasn't there. It was like 114, was it?
No, it was 142, I believe. He was
142.
Like 23 yards off. I should have given out the rushing. It was high, a little high, 90, but then again, he gets it in one big breakaway run. Like the running one with Chambers.
Yeah, 88 yards.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I did bet that one on my own. Didn't give it out, but I bet it. So when he broke that 88-yarder, when they're already up and you think, they're not going to really run him anymore, then there's a flag on the field. I'm thinking, is this a holding? So that at least I hit that. But, gosh, he came out firing and just was a little off early in the game when he needed to still start building up some yards, because once they got that lead, they were going to run out their stable of 5 running backs and just pound it. So, I thought 165 was low. He got 3 passing touchdowns, but only
143 yards. Yeah.
So a very efficient game from him. But, yeah, he needed to hit some of those passes early. He looked a little off. Hated to lose that one. I had it in a couple parlays too, which was dumb. So, yeah, 1-3 week. But, when you start off 8-1, that's what we call regression to the mean. We're going to bounce back this week. How are your bets looking, Colby?
Awful. They were terrible. I went 2-3 last week of my 5 picks, so I didn't do much better. But I didn't have the pristine 8-1 record to look back on. I think I was. Let me do the math here. I was 4-4 going into week 5. So now sitting on the week at 6-7. We'll talk about some of them. Western Carolina did hit at minus 21. They just keep continuing to impress, and I'll talk about them in a little bit because they've got a big game today down in Chattanooga. It's Chat's Hoco, and Western Carolina continues to make their case as SoCon contenders. Got a big game on the 21st at Furman, which I will be at personally. Talk my family into going with me too, man. This is going to be great. Nice. But Western Carolina did hit on that minus 21, so a good thing for Colby Peterson, but then it gets rough. Chattanooga minus 17 does not cover. And so Chat is weird because they lost early in the season to North Alabama, so folks weren't quite sure, but they've righted the ship since then. And they've played some hot teams. They've beat Kennesaw State. They have looked much, much better. That's why today is a big matchup with Western Carolina coming to them in Chattanooga, because you don't quite know what you're going to get. But last week, Chat just really didn't have it. They won, but they didn't win as big as we thought that they would. And so because of that, once again, Colby Peterson wrong. And I think the thing that is happening to me that maybe has happened to you a few times, Parlay, is putting some of these in parlays where you have a bet that you feel really confident in, and then you put it with something maybe you have less confidence in, and next thing you know, you don't hit. So that just absolutely kills you as you try and manage that bankroll. So always a key decision on what you're going to put with what if you're trying to maintain that. But that one burned me. Chat ends up 23-13 over Wofford, who has been bad. They're 0-5, but not quite enough. Next up for me, the ISU-UM over. We talked about this last week, right? I was like, I don't know, man.
Tried to warn you.
You did, and Parlay was like, take the under, man. I'm like, I don't know. These offense, maybe something's going to happen. It did not happen. Colby Peterson needs to listen to Montana Parlay, he's got the wisdom. Montana continues to, like we said, hit the unders so far, 5 of 5 this season. So, yeah, the under was the play there. Colby Peterson was wrong with the over. Should have gone the other way. We already talked about Portland State, Montana State. Not quite the over at 66 that we had hoped. And then finally, the Davis Poly over, 57.5. Not quite there because it felt like Davis kind of just let off the gas, it seems, in that second half. Just didn't do quite as much as they had before. And so didn't come away with what they needed, only with 44 points in that one. So that's it, man. 2 of 3 for me last week. 1 of 4 for you. We're gonna write this. Our weekly parlay. Let's talk about this. So Davis Poly did not. It was rough. We went 1 of 3 in our weekly parlay last week. So Davis Poly did not hit the over like I just talked about. Idaho at -6 took care of business, handled things well, no problem there. And a big that game was in Cheney, right? Was that game last week?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the first time that Idaho had won on the red turf. So history for them, good for us. -6 covered, but then Holy Cross -10 does not cover, loses in fact to Harvard. Don't love that. I had that in a couple of parlays and it burned me. So I'm pissed at Holy Cross. I'm not betting them this week, but I think you got something to say.
Yeah, we'll see. The theme, we'll get into my picks here soon, but the theme for me is bounce back week. The problem is, what lines are we going to follow? They're bouncing around. I'm trying to follow what the offshore books have compared to the legal books, which are always freaking slow.
Yeah.
But they're starting to come out. So I'm actually placing bets as we're doing the show. But that Holy Cross line, I guess, should we just get into the picks right now? Let's see. So Holy Cross, that was going to be part of the theme was bounce back games. So they really needed that Harvard game to get a top 4 seed, to have a chance at a top 4 seed.
Yeah, because the rest of the schedule's weak.
Exactly, which kind of guarantees a home game in the quarterfinals, which is huge. But like you said, the schedule is weak. They play Bucknell this week. They're pissed off. They are they're on the road, it looks like. But still, it's Bucknell. Last year, I think they beat them 54-0. And this year, offshore books had them at 27.5, 26.5, which I liked. I felt like they were going to win by 30. It's 31.5 on Bet Rivers here in Illinois, and I don't know if I can pull that trigger. That's a big line. I've been getting burned by big lines all year. I had 26.5 down in my picks. I think I have to cross it out. I am not going to do 31.5. You know what that means? Holy Cross is going to win by 40. But you know, unfortunately, that 26.5 doesn't exist. If you've got it on one of your neighborhood books, then jump on it. If it's 28 or less, jump all over it. But 31.5, I can't give that out. It's just a little too much. You know, I could definitely see like a 35-6, 35-7 type score and not get the cover. So that's a stay away right now for me. Everyone else, you can make your own decision because, again, they could easily win by 40 or 50.
Yeah.
My bounce back game of the week, for a couple of reasons, and gosh, I wish I could bet it right now because I have a feeling it's going to move, and it's going to move quick. And that's North Dakota State, who laid an absolute egg against South Dakota at home for homecoming. Just got whipped by the Yotes. They are only 10.5-point favorites at Missouri State. I think Missouri State has been overrated the last couple of years. Apparently their QB is hurt. 10.5 with a pissed off Vikings, pissed off Bison team is way too little. They're going to win by at least 2 touchdowns. They're going to make a statement. They're going to say, hey, we're still in the mix for a top seed. And they're going to win this, like I said, by 14 or more, coming out easy. So NDSU minus 10.5. I'm just crossing my fingers that that's actually the line I get to bet. The next game, which I actually did just bet here, and follow me at your own risk because I'm stepping out of the big sky in the valley where, and the line has moved, is I got Fordham Lehigh at 52.5 over. It's now at 54.5, but again, shop around, you know, if you're in a legal state, look at your various apps and websites and find that lowest number, bet the over. These Fordham might put up 50 by themselves. We really need Lehigh to get to 17 for a guarantee over on this one. And I like the over. Those teams don't play defense at all. And Fordham can put up a lot of points. But again, outside of the Valley, outside of Big Sky. My record there has not been great except for Holy Cross the first 2 weeks. But I do like the over there.
So I got
Finally,
I just took a look here in Tennessee. We've got over sitting right now at 53.5 in that game.
53.
So worth taking a look at.
You should take it a little. You got a point value over me. So, all right. Then finally, it's I like one of your picks, but I let you or think. Let's see, where are you at? Oh man. Well, if you don't say it, I'm going to throw it in later.
Go ahead.
I think I know what you're going to take. Western Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll let you have that one.
Okay.
Here's my sports bet Montana special of the week. We're going to buck a trend. They overcorrected on this Montana over-under. They have it listed at 47.5. They've been losing their asses on people betting Montana unders, and they overcorrected. The offshore books have it at 51 or 52.5. That's more reasonable, where I would lean under. 47.5. That's 27-21, 28-20. Those types of scores will go over. That's not many points. If Idaho State can put up 20 against the Grizz in Missoula, I like UC Davis to put up at least 28. So it's up to the Grizz. Can their offense score 20 against Davis? I don't know, but if you're in Montana, I say you buck the trend. You put a little bit on over 47.5 on the Grizz game. And that's it. I mean, I usually like to put out a few more picks. I don't know enough about the Grizz individual players, and I think their offense stinks, so I'm not going to pick any prop bets in that game. But we're going to shoot for 3 in 1 week, maybe even go 4-0. What do you got?
I look at your picks, and the only one that makes me nervous is that Holy Cross, because I hear what you're saying. They're going to play angry. Matt Sluka's going to come out. He still has looked really good. I think I just looked at the stats. Sluka right now is like an 1,100-yard passer, only 4 picks. On paper, it looks like, Holy Cross should win this going away. 14 touchdowns for him. And so, plus on the ground, 76 carries so far. He's got 440 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. So he's very much in the mold of your Montana State Bobcats parlay. I don't know, man. I got burned last week, and I'm pissed at them. So that's the only pick that I see on your thing where I'd be like, I don't know. But overall, I hear what you're saying. North Dakota State, that's probably a good bet. Missouri State, probably a little bit overrated. North Dakota State comes out, takes care of business, wins by more than 2 touchdowns, or at least by 2 touchdowns. Let's take a look at some of mine, though, man. I have some interesting ones. The very first one I want to talk about was my own Weber State Wildcats. I don't know if you watched the game last week. Weber State ended up struggling mightily against the lowly Northern Colorado Bears in Greeley. Weber wins on a miracle. They score 21 points in the final 3 possessions of the game to take it over and win. One of those was a pick 6 by linebacker and defense extraordinaire Winston Reed. That did not give me a lot of confidence coming into this week. Northern Colorado is a bad Big Sky team, and now the Wildcats are back home, and they have to face a Northern Arizona team that, like we just talked about, has been very, very plucky. They have played good teams closely. They have beat the Grizz, who I think are in the same boat as the Wildcats right now, offensively. Just not a lot going on right now. There's not a lot of confidence. So as soon as I saw NAU getting plus 13.5 at Weber State, hammer that, man, because the way that the Wildcat offense has played the last couple of weeks, I think NAU could win this thing, let alone the Wildcats not win by 2 scores. The games have always traditionally been close between these two. In my recent memory, I can only think of one game where either side won by more than 1 possession, and that was like 4 years ago. Josh Davis runs like crazy all over NAU and Ogden, but it's always a very close game with weird stuff that happens at the end. 13.5 is a mountain for the melee in the mountains. Hammer NAU plus 13.5. Next one that kind of caught my eye is Hampton versus Campbell. So Hampton has, I think, really been a surprise team this year. I don't watch a lot of CAA because they're on Flow Sports and it's really, really difficult. But Hampton has some quality wins, I think, so far. Or at least they've had some good showings that give me some confidence in the Pirates. So right now they've got wins over Grambling, a SWAC team, losing to Norfolk State, beating Howard, and then beating Richmond last week. Richmond, a middling CAA team this year. They're not great. They're not the worst, but they're not great. So I look at this and I look at the way that Campbell has played in the last few weeks. Right now, from what we have, I'm seeing that Hampton's getting plus 7.5 against Campbell, and this game is going to be at home for Hampton. I look at that and I go, man, I might take that, because not only do I think that Campbell won't win by more than a touchdown, I think Hampton might actually beat him, because Campbell has not looked super impressive this season. So another pick a little bit outside of our wheelhouse, like you said, parlay, because CAA is a little weird. Don't watch a lot of it because it's not on ESPN Plus. But looking at some of the numbers, this one looked intriguing to me. Next up, we already talked about it. Western Carolina taking the trip to Chattanooga to play Chattanooga's HoCo this weekend down there. Western Carolina has the number one total offense in the country. They're getting plus 4.5 against Chat, who has really figured things out, like we said, since that North Alabama loss. They've looked a lot better, a lot more competitive. But man, I like things that put Western Carolina at a disadvantage. The only thing I think that we've been I don't know that we were super wrong about it, but East Kentucky coming back and barely beating Western Carolina at the end of the game up there. I like the way Western Carolina is looking. I think that they're going to be SoCon contenders. I'm going to the game on the 21st against Furman. I think I'm taking Western Carolina plus 4.5 against Chat. And then finally, last one that caught my eye was this Idaho Poly game. Idaho takes the trip. I think they said for the first time they're going to San Luis Obispo. First time ever going to SLO. Enjoy, Vandals fans, if you're taking that trip. It's a great trip down there. It's always nice weather, and usually Poly stinks, so it's usually a dub. This one, I think I'm going to take the over. Poly did not perform super well against Davis the way we thought that they would last week, right, Parlay? We thought that they would maybe do a little bit more passing the ball, but they only mustered, 13 points? Yeah, it was 7 points in the second, 6 points in the fourth. Not a great showing from them, but Idaho's offense has really done well. You talked about the connection between Giovanni McCoy, their quarterback, and that great receiving core they have. Right now, they're getting, according to the books that we have, you can go and get, hopefully when this finally drops at whatever sports book you have, you can get Idaho Poly over at 59.5. It's not super low, but it's also not super high. So I look at that and go, yeah, with as bad as Poly's been and the way that Idaho has scored points lately, I think that they can get there, especially if Poly puts a couple touchdowns on the board. I think that this could probably happen. So that's my fourth pick of the evening or of the morning for as we get ready for week 6 of the FCS.
Yeah, and I looked at the NAU Weber game too. That looks really tempting. The thing that gives me hesitancy is Weber is the matchup. Weber's strength are their DBs, and they got a few guys up front that can bust up the middle. So that and their special teams and being at home, they could easily slip out with a 14-plus point win. But you're right, that's too many points. Me and my brother do a guess the line segment on Twitter early in the week. Check us out. I posted on at Montana Parlay. He's Big Sky Oh My. We guessed the Big Sky lines early in the week before they're posted anywhere, just to kind of gauge what we think it's going to be versus what the books are going to think. And that's a great way, if you gamble every week, to kind of figure out where the value is, at least in your mind. And I think we both were right around 7-point favorites for Weber was our guess. So that's 6 points of value. And I mean, we've been doing this for a while. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're right and there actually is value, but I think that spread's too high. I mean, I wouldn't put too much on it just because, like I said, it's a strength versus strength, and Weber's at home, and they got to get their. Maybe they figured something out offensively. I don't know. What do you think, Colby? Have they figured anything out? Or are they going to make any adjustments because their QB play has been downright awful?
Atrocious. Yeah, that's the biggest problem right now. The Wildcats continue to run the ball. That's fine. We understand it, but they're very, very one-dimensional right now. They're going to run the ball. They do not throw the ball a lot, and when they do, they don't throw it well. From what I saw, the two deep this week, there have been no changes at the quarterback position. So what you've seen the last few weeks is what you're going to get today against Northern Arizona. In my view, the X factor, I guess, in this game is the pass rush. Late in the game against Northern Colorado, the defense dialed up a lot more blitz and pass rush on Jacob Sermon because he was having a good day up to that point. About, maybe a third of the way into the fourth quarter, they just started blitzing him. He starts making mistakes. He threw 3 picks, and that was a big reason why, is because they started going up the middle, putting pressure on him. If Weber State decides to do a similar thing against Northern Arizona and causes them to make those similar mistakes, then yeah, I think you're right. Then maybe Weber State is able to win by more than, or win by 2 touchdowns. But if that doesn't happen, I have no confidence necessarily in the Weber State offense to do anything that's going to be remarkable aside from, one big play here or there. So if it's me, I'm taking that 13.5 because the game is always close either way. Even when the teams are good, even when Weber's good, it's still always a close game. So.
Yeah, and I'm just following some stuff here. I was trying to put together a live parlay, and that Fordham over has jumped to 56. So I got it at 52.5 earlier. I mean, that's not a huge movement once you get into the 50s, but I don't know if I would chase that right now. It's unfortunate because I was trying to build a little stupid parlay on my own. It's just interesting. I don't know about you, but I think it's fun watching these lines bounce around. FCS, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take very much money to move the lines early because honestly, these books don't have much more of an idea of where to set the lines than you and I do.
Yeah, and that's why I like betting the FCS more than the FBS. Those books are, those lines are usually out there well in advance. You can sort of they pay a little bit closer attention. I think in the G5 there's opportunity. When you start getting into the P5, it gets a little bit more difficult. But the FCS, like you said, Parlay, they're putting these lines out only a couple of hours before the game. That tells you a lot about their confidence level and what they're putting out there. So I love betting the FCS for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's do the week 6 FCS parlay. What do you got, man? What do you think we'll do for the fans this week?
I mean, gosh, I would have loved to put in Fordham Lehigh over 52 or even 54 to 56. I don't know. Let's do NDSU minus 10.5. That's my pick.
Okay, NDSU minus 10.5. I don't hate that. I think, like you said, it's probably a good look. Missouri State maybe a little overrated. North Dakota State looking for that bounce back game after the loss to South Dakota in the Fargo Dome. Stunning. For me, I've talked about it. I think NAU plus 13.5 is printing money. So if I were you, I would do that. And then for a third, what do you think?
Well, I don't see the fans chiming in yet, but I think it's the one we both wanted to pick and you ended up going with, and that's Western Carolina plus 4.5. We might be undervaluing Chat, but, even if it is a close game, 4.5 is enough points to work with Western Carolina's offense, even if Chat pulls out the home victory, which they very well could. I like Western to win outright, but, if you've got a late 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 point, not 12, 8, 9, 10 point lead, Western Carolina's got the offense to get the late score, get the backdoor cover. I do like those points, 4.5, and what probably is the game of the week in the FCS. The Big Sky's kind of thin this week with buys, so I'm going to look at the SoCon. Thankfully, they're on ESPN Plus, and I'm going to tune in at what time is that game? 3 p.m. Central Time to Western Carolina and Chattanooga. That's a huge game in the SoCon to decide where the seeding might end up by the end of the year. So we got NDSU minus 10.5, NAU plus 13, and Western Carolina plus 4.5.
Yeah.
I think this could be our first. I hate to say it first, but parlays are tough to hit. I think this is the one. This is the week we do it.
I agree. I think this is the one. It looks good from where I'm sitting. What we've talked about, I feel very confident in some of these bets that we put out there. So it's looking good. We got our guy Kevin Marshall in the comments right now. Gonzalez is a dog. So, yeah, they've been singing the praises of Western Carolina over there on Kevin's show, FCS Nation Radio. He and Stone are doing a great job. I guess I should give an honorable mention to Stone's SIU Salukis. I had them at -6 versus Youngstown State. I like that. I think the Salukis have played really well. They're going to go to the playoffs for sure. They've been talking a lot about them over there. And, yeah, I mean, Kevin's saying he was there. He saw them in person last week, liked the way they looked. I had an opportunity to go to Cape Girardeau. Didn't get in the game, but the SEMO SIU game, the War of the Wheel, SIU has continued to put up the numbers and impress. And so honorable mention to Stone Lebanowitz's SIU Salukis at -6 versus Youngstown State, who dropped probably a game they should have won against Northern Iowa last week. So that's it, man. That is our picks for the week. Parlay, any parting thoughts before we wrap the show up today?
Don't chase the evening. Practice good bankroll management. Let's come out with a winning week. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. Like you said, always practice good bankroll management. I 100% agree with you there, Parlay. So we'll just wrap it up. Well, I guess I should say really quickly, a reminder, please subscribe to FCS Fans Nation here on YouTube if you're watching here. Facebook, go to their Facebook group, FCS Fans Nation, or follow on Twitter. Lots of good interaction there. Lots of good fans. It's a great community. And if you're so inclined, it's the kind of community that you want to hang out with in Frisco, even if your team is not going. Looks like my team's not going, but I'm still going to go to Frisco because it looks like a good time, and they're such a good group of dudes. So make sure to follow those folks. Really appreciate them letting us do this show. So we'll just wrap it up and say what we usually say, which is 1AA parlays, bet the best, leave the rest.
And go Braves.
I'm not willing to go that far, but all right, man. Appreciate you all. We'll see you.